You will find situations where you need to meet with a client, but how are you going to make this work, and how is this going to happen? And you just can't see through that very moment what that next stage is. But I want you to have faith, I want you to believe in yourselves, and I want you to know that you have every right to work with that client because you can and will make a difference for them. And with that context, what I want to do is help you see that there is actually a process that you can implement with your clients to ensure your success. And so I'm going to have Veronica come up here and have her share her story, and as a CPA, what it is she's doing to actually help and impact her clients. So Veronica, come on up. Veronica is the, I'm going to call her founder of the Virtual Bookkeepers Roadmap that some of you are familiar with. And I'm going to turn this mic over to you.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you, Roger. I nearly pulled out my tissue and was about to cry from the video earlier because it's so inspirational, and I think I can definitely identify with so much of that story of never giving up and coming to those situations where I had to make a choice. Do I keep going? Do I give up? And I wanted to present to you today the topic of building the business of your dreams, and really by talking about how I built the business of my dreams. And as Roger said, I am the founder of the Virtual Bookkeepers Roadmap. It is the course that I put together. I'm also the CEO and founder of Veronica Wasek, and we provide accounting and bookkeeping and advisory services for Shopify and Amazon sellers. You might know me from social media if you've seen me on YouTube or on my blog called 5 Minute Bookkeeping. I am, the founder of my Facebook group called 5 Minute Bookkeeping with QuickBooks Online. I have about 10,000 members in that group, and I have been named a top 10 as well as a top 100 QuickBooks Pro Advisor, and I am a CPA and Certified Advanced Pro Advisor for QuickBooks Online. So again, as I said, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my journey and my dream business. So I started my business in 2010 in the middle of the Great Recession, and I had to make a choice at that time because I was working as a controller of a business. I thought I was on my way to being a CFO. I had all of these plans. Not one of those plans involved being a business owner. I thought I wasn't really cut out to be a business owner. I didn't think I wanted to take the risk to do that, but I got laid off twice in the middle of the recession and really felt like I had nothing left to lose. And I thought, you know what, rather than go to work for someone else, get paid a fraction of what I used to make, I'll start my own business on my own terms. And as you know, if you were around during the Great Recession, that was really tough. There was so much going on then or really so much going on now that we didn't have then, as far as social media, Facebook groups, everything that I'm doing now, I didn't have the ability to do then. I had no money, I had no clients, I had no employees, so it was just me thinking I'll just do accounting. I didn't really know what that might be, other than I was starting a business. And I didn't know what I was doing. People would ask me, what do you do? And I would say, well, I'm a part-time controller. That's, I think, how I started telling people. Well, they didn't know what a controller was. They didn't see the need to hire a controller. It was the Great Recession. They didn't want to pay for that anyway. But I had a dream, and I allowed myself to dream as big as I could then, and I've allowed that dream to keep growing. And I wanted to start a business. I didn't want to start a practice or a firm. I knew that it needed to be a business, and that's why I called it the business of my dreams. I wanted to build a business that was not dependent on me. So I wanted to have that vision for, even though, yes, I am starting it myself, I want this business to grow, and I don't want it to be totally dependent on me, because when I looked at the CPAs that I had worked for, they were the owners, they were the ones doing the bulk of the work, and they didn't have a lifestyle. There wasn't anything that I wanted to emulate when I looked at the traditional CPA firm. I wanted it to be 100% virtual. I wanted it to be cutting edge. I wanted to be on the cutting edge of technology. In 2010 and after was, and still is, there's this wave going on of all the changes in our profession, and I have been riding that wave. I've been on the edge of that wave most of the time. I wanted to work with premium clients, and I also did not want to provide any tax services, no audits, basically nothing that was a traditional service that a CPA provided, because again, when I looked at that business model, there wasn't anything that I wanted to do that I felt would give me the lifestyle that I wanted. I wanted to have employees that would be happy to work for me, and that meant that they would not work any overtime. And I don't know if you know of any CPA firm where the employees don't work overtime, but that was my goal. And I wanted to help others, and I wanted to free up my husband from his job, because he had to do a lot to help me while I was growing my business. And it all started really with specialization and really focusing on a service or a skill set that would resonate with people in the middle of a recession. And that was really QuickBooks. And in 2010, it was QuickBooks Desktop. Once I understood that that needed to be my area of specialization, and that business owners value that they were willing to pay for that skill set, I learned everything I could about QuickBooks Desktop, and still know quite a bit about it. But in 2014, when I saw that Intuit Corporation started promoting their QuickBooks Online product, I learned everything I could about QuickBooks Online, and then marketed myself as a QuickBooks Online expert, and then have focused my practice around QuickBooks Online ever since. In 2019, I changed my niche to e-commerce, and this year decided to focus make my niche even narrower, and focused on Shopify and Amazon sellers. But along the way, as with any business, when you go from that infant stage to teenager stage, there's those growing pains. If you're a parent, I'm sure you know that that happens, and that happened with my business also. There was disorganization. The stickies that you see there on the laptop, that was basically my desk. It was stickies everywhere. I would talk to a prospective client, I would take notes on a sticky, I would put it somewhere and talk to somebody else. I had notebooks, lots of notebooks that I would write things in. I would go visit clients, and then I would put that notebook somewhere, and then I didn't know where the notebook went. I would lose all my notes. I was very disorganized, and I was doing everything myself. Because as I said, I started all by myself. So everything was dependent on me. And as I said, along the way, apps and automation also started growing, becoming popular. When I started, all the apps were baby apps. We didn't have as many apps. And so I had to figure out which apps I would use. I had to test a lot of apps in my own business to make sure that we knew how to use them. I have seen every iteration of QuickBooks Online Accountant, because actually I was doing QuickBooks before QuickBooks Online Accountant even existed. We have, my team and I have messed up all the app integrations. We've learned how to clean them all up. It's been an experience, really, working with apps. And then there was growth, and I hired employees. And I have to say it's probably one of the most difficult things I've had to do, to learn how to delegate, to learn how to trust people, to learn to empower people for their success. I wanted them to be happy. I didn't necessarily know what that meant. I learned I had to get out of the way a lot to let them really thrive in what they were doing. And my first hire was a part-time employee who worked only 3 hours a week. So that was my big hire, was someone working 3 hours a week. And then I scaled my business by hiring part-time employees. At one point, I had 6 part-timers working anywhere from 3 hours a week to 15 hours a week. And that's when I started to realize that, okay, the stickies are not going to work. All this disorganization is not going to work. And even hiring people to work on clients and letting them do their own thing when they were doing that was not going to work. Over time, my part-timers turned into full-time employees. So I went from part-time to full-time, which then actually led to frustration because of scaling the business, now having to keep full-time employees busy while having to pay them. It was very difficult from a cash flow perspective to figure out, okay, do I go and find clients, but I don't have employees to work on these clients, or do I go and find employees and then get clients later? So it was a difficult time, went through a couple of years of difficulties with cash flow and honestly paying employees before I could pay myself. And where's our profit first person? Because that's what profit first is about, the opposite. Pay yourself first. But I didn't know how to do that. So it was difficult. And scaling the business, again, was difficult from the standpoint of now trying to manage all of the employees and having them produce quality work, making sure that everybody was doing the same thing, making sure that we're reviewing all of the work, teaching my employees. I hired some employees right out of college, and while they had some technical knowledge, they did know QuickBooks, they did know how to do bookkeeping, and pulling my hair out and then trying to train and mentor employees along the way while growing a business. And as I mentioned too, uncertainty, just not really knowing, okay, is this business going to succeed? And having to make those choices of, do I keep going? And sticking with it, always sticking with it. But, there's doubt and there's fear. And now my teenager business has become quite profitable. I have confidence, I have focus. I'm an idea person, and I can be all over the place with ideas and the next best thing and the next service, and there's always a great idea. The moment I wake up, I'm full of ideas, and really understanding what I need to do to focus what makes my business profitable, spending time on that, continuing to grow employees, understanding who my ideal client is. I think that's really important to understand who that is, to understand that over time I need to start saying no to the wrong clients, no to the wrong opportunities. I have the ability now to say no a lot. So I say no to everything except Amazon and Shopify sellers. And my employees are well trained now. So after putting in all of the time, all of the effort to mentor, to grow, to educate them, to show them how to do things properly, then that investment has paid off. And I have been able to delegate because of that. And I have also been able to, as I said, be able to pick a niche that is a complex niche because I have employees that can learn more complex bookkeeping and accounting. So now, what does my successful business look like? As I said, I have a niche business. I work with premium clients. I actually work with 30 monthly clients, and we'll be doing close to $500,000 in revenues this year. I also work with clients who come to us on a monthly basis for cleanups, for consulting as well. So we're probably working with about 100 clients throughout the year overall. I have a team of 4 employees. None of us work overtime. I only work 30 hours a week for the most part. As I said, the team rarely, if ever, would work overtime. And the best thing is I only spend 15% of my time on client work because I have trained the team to do the work. I have someone that reviews the work. She mentors now our new employees. And so I've worked myself out of a job really from the technical side of the business other than helping with higher end issues, continuing the mentoring, and then reviewing. I think I review 2 clients' books now a month, and they are premium clients. And best of all, my husband left his job in 2019. So last year, he was laid off from his job, and we just decided that he doesn't have to go back to work. So he's busy doing lots of house projects now. He's a honeydew, is what I say. So what is the key to my success? Aside from sticking with it, aside from having that vision of what I wanted to build, building something different from what everybody else was doing, really the key to success overall in my business and what has added value to my business are our systems. So our systems, our processes, and our workflows. Because as I said, when I was going from yellow stickies and notebooks and like, how do we do this? I was also figuring out how do we do this better and how do we make this efficient so that we don't have to work so hard? Or if we hire a new employee, how do we plug them into what we're doing without now spending months training them or even having to hire people who know what they're doing, which is usually what most accounting firms are doing. They're trying to hire people that already have a strong skill set, but they can't find those people because there aren't enough to go around in the market. So by systematizing what we do at VM Wasek, at my company, is how I was able to then go from working by myself to working with a team and being very efficient, and not just efficient, but really delivering a high-value service and being extremely profitable. So why should you systematize, and why is that important? Well, as I said, I went from chaos, the yellow stickies, disorganization, mind clutter. I don't know about you, but for me, being that creative person, my mind is already cluttered with ideas. I don't need any more clutter, but it was really cluttered. And I was working harder and harder. And that's what I see people in our industry doing when it's just you or when you have a business that revolves around you. You're working harder and harder and just adding more and more time, which doesn't help you to build a business that serves your lifestyle, and ultimately you're just wearing yourself out, and that's not any fun. So we went from all the chaos, all the disorganization, to building templates, forms, checklist, working smarter, being able to scale, and then being profitable. Now, as I was saying, the traditional accounting firm business model, in my opinion, was broken, and I wanted to build something different. So when I would observe the traditional accounting firm, I've worked for my share of them, the model is you, or the partner, or the owner, are at the center of the business, and you are a worker. So you've created yourself a job. You hire other people. They're also workers, and they're all just kind of doing their thing. As I said, you're trying to find people that already have a skill set that will just sort of like, you just go like, hey, take these clients like my boss used to do. He'd give me I'm dating myself, sorry, work papers, right? Okay. So he would come with this big old stack of work papers, set them on my desk and go, there you go, figure it out. So that's what it is. You hire workers and you just go, there you go, figure it out. Well, then everything is focused around hours, right? How long does it take? Let's bill by the hour, right? And then you focus on the deliverable, the financials, the tax return. We have to make sure that we have all of that for the client because it's all about just the deliverable and how many hours it takes. And then the client is directing what you do because you're not clear on what your services are. You're not clear on who the ideal client is. And so the client just says, I want it done this way, and you say yes. Now, I know what this is like because I have been there and I've done that. But I knew that's not where I wanted to be. The ideal model for a business is that at the center of your business are the systems and processes. So as I said, the checklists, the forms, the templates, your way of doing business. You are the leader of your business. You're no longer a worker. In fact, your job is to work yourself out of a job. So you're the leader. And then you hire people to be in your team. So you no longer have to hire people that are going to figure it out on their own. You're going to hire people that have some level of training, but you're going to essentially plug them into your systems and processes. You're going to tell them how it needs to be done, and they're going to do it your way because your way works. Then you focus on providing valuable outcomes to your client, so focusing on what's valuable to them, giving that to them. And it's also about your way of doing business. It's not about how the client, what the client wants. It's about your way of doing business, and then you find the clients that fit this model, and then you price accordingly to get profitable clients. So then you might ask, give me one second. Oh, no. Okay, I set my timer. I thought I was out of time already. So you might ask yourself, well, how do you do that? Okay, so how did I go from all this knowledge in my head, so 20 plus years by the time I had started this business, or maybe 20 years of knowledge in my head, how did I get that out of my head in order to now have checklists and templates? I basically had to break down all the services that we provided into steps, so breaking them down into steps, and then for each step, breaking those down into tasks, to then create checklists, refining those checklists over time. So after we put together a checklist, then we would work on a client. We'd make sure everything was included in the checklist, and after we revised it a few times, then we created templates. And that's what is basically, the templates are what the employees use now. I also worked on my bookkeeping packages because I needed to standardize my services, be able to standardize my offering to clients, as well as standardize what my employees were doing. And I know that's a bit hard to read, but you can see I have a sample of 4 packages growing across. We really only offer 3, but in order to break everything down, I just made a list of, here are all the things that we provide. So our service might include their QuickBooks Online subscription, their financial reports, time to answer their questions, talking to their tax accountant, making the tax adjustments to the books, working with their bank feeds, reconciling their bank statements. Depending on the package, we might do their payroll, their accounts payable management, accounts receivable management. If they have loans, we might reconcile the loans, and then we would do their 1099 processing. So it was just a matter of listing out, here are all the services that we might provide, here are the services we will include in each package, and then how often we will provide those services. So it started really this as a basis for then putting together our service packages. And for example, this is the silver package example of breaking that down into the steps. So what does that silver package include? In what order are we going to provide that service in? So for example, in this service package, we're working on the client's QuickBooks Online. The client does their invoicing, they enter their customer payments, they pay their vendors, and they do their own payroll. We're going to record their deposits, we're going to categorize and match their bank feeds, and we're going to reconcile their loans if they have loans. Then we're going to fetch their bank statements, we'll reconcile their bank and credit card accounts, we'll review their books and make adjustments and corrections. We might give some coaching to the client or give them feedback if they did something wrong. And then we'll have the reports for the client. So again, we had to break things down into what are the steps, what happens along the way in that monthly bookkeeping cycle, and who's doing what, when are they going to do it. We also, as I said, had to figure out the apps because, as I said, they were baby apps. They didn't all work great. Many of them still don't work great. But we had to figure out which apps were we going to use for accounts payable, for payroll, for receipt capture, for bank statement fetching, or even deciding that we would not use apps for bank statement fetching. We still don't, because they didn't work well. And really had to identify what are the essential apps that we needed for our business, because as you know now, there's, I don't know, hundreds of apps. It's impossible to choose. And so really focusing on what's essential instead of looking at the entire app ecosystem. And so we figured out that we needed a document management app, which we use Box, by the way, for that. We needed bookkeeping apps, QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Online Accountant. And then the other was, okay, depending on the services that we provide, we need an app for payroll. We use Gusto. Accounts payable, we have been using Bill.com. We're likely going to move to Melio. Receipt capture, we use Receipt Bank. And bank statement fetching, decided that none of them work well, and we just fetch our own statements. And as I said, we put together checklists. So here's an example of a client onboarding checklist. Well, step 1 and 2. Okay. So an excerpt of that. So what does that client onboarding process look like? And now having my team members follow the steps in the checklist. And notice, do you have a software that you're using for the checklists? No. No, I've tried some and I can talk to you later, but no. My husband is a programmer and developer, but I can't talk him into writing apps for me because I would do checklists all day long. But I'll talk to you about it. But one thing to know, what starts the onboarding process? Signed engagement letter or signed service agreement and payment upfront or a deposit. You get paid first. If you don't have that, you don't have a client. It doesn't start the process. And I learned that the hard way. Lost, a few $1,000s with that. So we put together a checklist, as I said. We broke down our monthly bookkeeping process into 5 steps: record, reconcile, review, revise, restrict. As I said, everybody in our firm does the same thing. Of course, there's lots of checklists and procedures for each of those. Close the books, yeah. So I needed an R word, so yeah. So recording transactions, doing the bank reconciliations, doing a quality review, making corrections to the books after you do the quality review, and then closing the books to keep the client out. And then we came up with our document management categories because we are virtual, we're paperless, so we needed to organize all of our internal documentation, client documentation, and then came up with some buckets for administrative, client files, sales and marketing, internal company files, and knowledge capital. So after doing all of that in my firm, it took years to do it. It was a significant financial investment. I invested over $200,000 to put all of this together. I went through my rough patch, as I said, financially, but along the way, always building out all of my workflows. I put together the virtual Bookkeepers roadmap, and really it was as a result of people in my Facebook group asking for something like this. So what is included in the Virtual Bookkeepers roadmap? There are basically 7 lessons. And in lesson 1, we go over the virtual bookkeeping basics and building a solid foundation. So understanding who your ideal client is, what your ideal business looks like, looking at putting together service packages, doing some basic pricing, showing you how to price services. In lesson 2, building your app stack, basically. So focusing on those essential apps, understanding what you need, depending on the services that you will provide, and then identifying what those apps are, and even going into how to assess the different apps to make sure you pick the right one. I don't tell you the specific apps that you should use because I think every business is different and you need to make your own choices. Lesson 3, stress-free onboarding. So the whole onboarding process from getting a signed engagement letter, getting paid, everything that happens in between till you start the work. Lesson 4, the monthly bookkeeping workflow and managing the work status and due date. So the entire 5-step process that I showed you, as well as then how do you manage all of your client due dates? Because as you know, it's very different to work with one client versus 30 clients. You have to manage all of that and stay on top of it. Lesson 5, the monthly bookkeeping review workflow. So it's not just enough to do the bookkeeping or the accounting. You need a quality control process to ensure that you're putting out quality work and to ensure also that your employees are doing quality work. Number 6, document management, team collaboration, and improving productivity. And here's where we go into then how do you put together all of your different, your file structure, how to share folders with clients, how to get documents from clients. And lesson 7 is all about building value in your business and building a knowledge capital library. So basically, now that you're going to implement all of these systems and processes in your way of doing business, then the next thing is to then document all of that knowledge, get all the knowledge out of your head into this library, as well as documenting all of the knowledge that your employees have, because as you know, employees in an accounting firm are your assets, and if they leave, they take the knowledge with them. But what I've done is that anytime that one of my team members learns something new, it's added to the knowledge base, and we cross-train each other. So what you get with the Virtual Bookkeepers Roadmap, aside from all of the course training, you get a private Facebook group with direct access to me. So when you're asking questions, you're asking them of me. I will answer. It's not just you and talking to other people in the group, the blind leading the blind. You get access to me. We have monthly Q&A calls as well, so we'll spend time together where our students ask questions, and I'm there answering their questions. I'm there motivating them, helping them to also plan and implement what they're learning. You get the video lessons, and you get all of the resources, forms, checklists, scripts, and best practices. So you basically get my entire system, as I said, that took years to put together at a significant financial investment. You get all of that, basically a done-for-you system. And there are some testimonials from my students. I won't read them to you, but basically what some of my students have said is that this has been life-changing. For many of them, they're either new to virtual bookkeeping, or they have experience, but they don't quite know how to organize themselves. They don't have the confidence yet, and they want to learn from someone who's been there and who's done it, because otherwise, either you're not going to do this, or it's going to take you years to do it the same that it took me. All right, Roger.